to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. So, because I don't know where everybody's at and what background you're coming from and what knowledge you have, I would like to kind of go through the basic place when somebody gets newly diagnosed, what they're taught and what it usually looks like. And when you go to a support group, if you're involved in a support group, what that usually looks like. I will then go from there to show what's missing and why it's usually missing and what I'm trying to do to help change that. Okay, so here's what usually happens. Usually when somebody having, various symptoms, whether it's irritable bowel syndrome, whether it's lethargy, whatever's going on diet-wise, and the doctor says maybe you might want to be treated for celiac disease, or maybe try the gluten-free diet, and then people then go, what is this? What do I do with that? And they tend to take an approach that looks something kind of like this. This is an anagram based off of the word celiac. Isn't that kind of fun? So here's what that usually would look like. Usually it starts that they get a consultation. They find out more of what, maybe they see a doctor for treatment, they see a doctor for diagnosis, or they see a dietitian, or maybe both. So they get that consultation taken care of. Then from that, they get education. What celiac is about, they learn about the different, maybe they learn things that are just over their head and seems almost all academic, all about storage proteins and prolamins and all this stuff that's going on inside the gut and all these big fancy medical jargon words of which we can just go, I'm not remembering this. Okay, but they get that education nonetheless. Then they find out that it's going to take a lifelong adherence to the gluten-free diet. They find out that there is no cure for it, that it's going to be lifelong. This is usually a very encouraging message. I mean that sarcastically. Usually people are like, lifelong, really? Oh, drat it. I want a second opinion. But they find out that that's just the reality of it. And if they don't believe the doctor, they go the gluten-free diet for a while, and then they decide to say, well, maybe I could just cheat for a moment, and I'll prove to them it's not lifelong. Then they're like, oh, I feel horrible. Oh, my goodness. Oh, kill me now. Okay, I'm adhering. Lifelong. I'm a believer. Now what? Okay, so it's a lifelong issue, but they got to learn that. Sometimes they learn it academically. Sometimes they learn it by experience, but we find out it's lifelong. Okay, from there, then they have to really begin to identify what treatment they're going to be doing. This is where they get real serious. Once they've grasped the lifelongness of it, then the treatment begins to come into play. Usually the treatment involves stuff like learning the ingredients to find on a label. Maybe you learn all the time those words on the back of labels, and you look at those big, long words, and you learn to recognize certain things like barley, put that back, or wheat, put that back, or malt, put that back, and whatever the case is. And you look for the good words like rice flour. Yes, I can eat this. And you begin reading about ingredients, and you learn how to shop wise at restaurants and how to ask for a gluten-free menu, and if they don't have one, how to talk to the chefs or the cooks to find out if it's gluten-free friendly, and all those become part of that treatment plan. And then if they're still, from there, they tend to go toward an advocacy group, some type of support group network, or someone that can help them to be encouraged, to say moving forward, to answer questions, to figure out insights. And then from there, they find out that they are also going to need to get continuous follow-up, constantly revisiting the doctor, revisiting the dietitian, constantly having the follow-up on where the different ingredients are at, follow-up on what restaurants have what menu. Taco Bell, is it gluten-free? Is it not gluten-free? 1 month the meat is not safe, but the shells are. Then a month later, the shells are safe, but the meat's not. And what's going on with this? Can I eat Taco Bell? Can I not? And there's that continuous follow-up regarding that discussion. Does that sound about right, where most of you might have experienced? That's what the life is like, eating gluten-free. Maybe not those exact things or that exact order, but something like it. That tends to be my experience, that's what it tends to be. But it's missing something. It is absolutely missing a very much key ingredient. Okay, yes, diet's important. Yes, learning about the ingredients is important. And absolutely, reading labels must do, okay? You must be able to do that. If you like au gratin potatoes, you're going to have to go to Walmart or something, because half the au gratin potatoes at Meijer will have wheat in them. Idahoan potatoes, some of them have, those tend to be gluten-free, but Walmart tends to carry the best ones, and everybody else carries the premiums that tends to sometimes taste like feet. Have you noticed that about some gluten-free food? And so you got those are important, absolutely. but there's something missing. Something missing. I don't know if you've noticed it. When you've gone on the gluten-free diet, there's still maybe something happening in the home, something happening in the lifestyle, something happening in our relationships. Something is still being affected. And we don't quite, maybe can't put your finger on what that exactly is. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, before telling you what's missing, try to simplify this just a little bit. So this is my attempt at simplifying it. Isn't that great and complicated? So to help make this a little more simpler, let me just kind of take this one step at a time. These are things that you're going to learn in most doctor talks, dietitian talks, that, hey, celiac disease is often a genetic issue. Yes, there's gluten intolerance that's not genetic, though there's some research questioning that issue. But we have it's, for the most part, it's a genetic issue. So it runs in families, is what that means. It doesn't mean that a celiac parent is guaranteed to have a celiac child, but they're carrying the gene for it. And that their children, if they get the right type of trigger, that could begin to appear. And that their children could end up having celiac disease. Or maybe the offsprings all will have it. So we know that there's a genetic issue to it. We also know that it tends to have this chronic nature. That means that it's permanent. It's going to keep coming and going. It's not something that you can just go in and have surgery and have it removed. Wouldn't that be awesome? Could you remove my celiac, please? You know, it's just a little procedure, and it's gone. Some stitches, some ice cream, and I'm better. But it's a chronic issue, meaning it's going to keep coming. It's going to keep being there. It's going to be a lifelong issue. And you'll find out that it's autoimmune. You'll find out that what it's really about is that your body's attacking itself. And that what's happening is that the body has an immune system that is triggered and trained and designed to find foreign proteins, to find foreign tissue and obliterate it. It's just designed to be like a drug dog at an airport. Just sniffing, there it is, rough, and attack it. Okay, and that's what our immune system is designed to do. We find out that celiac disease, it tells the immune system to attack healthy cells. It tells the immune system that, hey, these stuff that we're eating, this is a foreign protein. And these healthy cells that it's dealing with along the part of the gut, those are foreign elements. Attack. So the body begins attacking itself. That causes, digestive issues. Okay, that's where you start not digesting everything right, and you start having a lot of, for the polite way of putting it, bathroom fun for a lot of people, or they get real sick, or they get real tired, and we tend to find that they have malabsorption issues, okay, where you don't absorb all the nutrients that you are eating. So you eat the food, and you waste it, literally, okay, and you're not absorbing it. So you end up getting malabsorption issues. And when you get malabsorption issues, what happens is you start getting different vitamin deficiencies. You start getting a whole bunch of fun problems that end up taking place to where it ends up looking something, we'll come back to that chart here in a second, ends up looking something kind of like this chart here, where you end up having all these different symptoms because of the malabsorption, because of the body not getting the nutrients that it needs. You end up getting sometimes bad breath. I know some celiacs who have that problem, right? They come by me and they're just shy of Godzilla, right? They could take out, where they spit, grass never grows again. It's just how it's going to be. And you find that there's intestinal issues, acid reflux and bloating, joint issues and different joint problems. It almost feels like arthritis on steroids. And you find all these things that are going on. And some people, some of the research that I've done have actually found out that some people can get seizures. And that there are actually seizures that can take place that doctors go, this isn't epilepsy, this isn't anything medically we can figure out, but it's actually a result of certain chemicals and certain nutrients that the body's supposed to digest that goes to the brain to help keep things solid. And when those become too low, the body can go into a type of seizure. And so when you get on the gluten-free diet, it can actually help some of those issues. It doesn't cure all seizures because epilepsy is its own world. But there is such a thing as a gluten-induced seizure. And it can cause all those types of interesting issues that can go on. And then there's skin issues, a different type of eczema type events can happen, acne can happen. I didn't know that celiac likely runs in my family. And so when I was dying of acne, Okay, I had terminal acne when I was in high school, and they gave me this like little bottle that you could dab and put on. It'd make me bleed, and it would hurt. And I'm like, get rid of this acne, man. I just was like one walking zit. Okay, it was just horrible. And if I had known that something like this could have helped, oh my word, would have changed my life. You know, I might have still been the social reject, but that's a whole different issue. But here's the part most people don't realize. Here comes some of the missing ingredient. The fact that it affects the brain. Okay, the fact that the gluten can affect, for the celiac person, their brain. And by affecting the brain, what that affects is your thought life, your emotional life, and your behavioral life. That's a very big issue. Okay, that's a very big issue. And a lot of people think that just by treating the diet, you will take care of all the thinking issues, all the behavioral issues, and sometimes those will decrease a little bit, but they tend not to go away. They tend to still be a problem. And people begin wondering, what about all this? I'm having memory loss issues. You know, it's more than just, where are my keys? You know, it's more than just, where did I put my glasses? You know, it's more than that there can actually be, you know, you went to the store the other day and you got all these groceries. I did. I don't remember. You bought those groceries. I didn't. And it seems like an early onset of dementia, or it seems like Alzheimer's kicking in. You're like, are you just dense? Do you just not care? And such conflict can arise in the home because of that memory loss, because you think that they're forgetting on purpose, or that it doesn't matter to them, or it's not important, when really there's something still behaviorally and mentally going on, that though you might be on the gluten-free diet, the problem behaviorally still persists. The symptoms are still there. A lot of the other ones will fix up. A lot of the ones that are strictly physical will begin to go away. The eczema might begin to clear up a little bit. You might find the acne begins to go away. The irritable bowel syndrome begins to go away. Some of the halitosis type bad breath begins to go away. It's not so much Godzilla, more like baby Godzilla, smoke rings instead of fire, you know, and whatnot. But there's the behavioral ones, the mood swings, the issues behaviorally and mentally, that those tend to remain. You might find that you get on the gluten-free diet and the conflicts you were having in the home are still there. And the arguments and the miscommunication and the lack of understanding and the lack of the isolation is still there. That many people, that they're on the gluten-free diet and they feel like they are, though they're part of a family, and though they could be in a room with a crowd full of people, they still feel very much alone. And they don't know why that is. They get on the gluten-free diet and those feelings still persist. And they don't quite know what's going on. And that tends to be the missing ingredient, which is this last part here of the issue of celiac disease, is that it's a multi-system issue. It's not just the gut. It's not just a diet issue. That the digestive system is like a web, and if this goes all over the body, it's not just food, esophagus, stomach, intestine, rectum, etc. It's not just the biology of the digestive system. It is multi-system. Another way of putting it is that there is an absolute gut-to-brain relationship. Okay, a direct gut-to-brain relationship. One of the ways to help people wrap their brains around this is, how many of you have ever experienced or either have or know somebody who has blood sugar issues? Whether it's diabetes, hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, okay? Do you notice that when their blood sugar gets out of whack, they become very annoying to be around? Okay? Have you noticed that? You know, if their blood sugar gets too low, they start getting tired, and their thinking gets foggy, and if their blood sugar gets really, really high, suddenly they become like angry, like they're a human version of the Hulk, and they're like, me smash, you know, and they just get angry and aggressive, short-tempered, right? And that's because the blood sugar is getting out of whack, and it affects their brain, thus affecting their behavior. Okay, so blood sugar does that, definitely. So does gluten. Okay, and so when you're on a gluten-free diet, you've got this direct gut-brain relationship. But then you might be wondering, why is it that it remains? Why is it that the behaviors don't change completely? Sometimes it will decrease a little bit, but why doesn't it fix like all the physical stuff do? Why does the behavior remain a problem even if you're on the gluten-free diet? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's why. We have in our brain something called mirror neurons. Okay, it's actually MNS, the mirror neuron system that's actually within our brains. And what I have here is a nice little picture of the brain from the scans here, a computerized scan showing the mirror neurons firing. Okay, showing the mirror neurons firing. What a mirror neuron is that neuron in the brain that fires whenever you are experiencing something, seeing something, or reading something that allows you to mimic it. Okay, that's what mirror neurons do. They allow you to mimic it. So, for example, have you ever had a song stuck in your head? You hear it, and then you're like, I had this back in the early 90s with Achy Breaky Heart. Okay, drove me nuts hearing that song over and over again. For today's world, it's Let It Go from Frozen. I cannot go into a store without hearing, let it go, let it go. I hear kids singing it everywhere and then hitting notes that are not human. And they're just going with it, right? Okay, whenever you had a song stuck in your head, that's your mirror neurons firing. It heard a song and now it's playing it on repeat. Isn't that nice? It depends on the song. Okay, I have a young son who loves Yo Gabba Gabba. And when one of those songs gets stuck in my head, I just want to go run into a wall. I'm like, no, get out of my head. Come on, there's got to be a way to turn off these mirror neurons. Okay, but that's what mirror neurons do. If you watch somebody solve a video game, and you watch how they play their character through a maze, and you've never played it before, but you're watching how they do it, where they go. And then when you play the game, you don't have to do the same problem solving. You know how to do it, right? You've learned it. Really what's happening is you're able to mimic it. You're able to do what they did on the video game because of the mirror neurons. These are responsible for a big part of learning. Whenever you say something over and over and over again to try to remember it, you're activating the mirror neurons, hoping that they will fire frequently enough, strong enough, often enough, and long enough that they will become part of the long-term memory system so that you can recall it months, years later. Okay, that's what the mirror neurons are about. So when you experience something, do something, hear something, see something, the mirror neurons remember it. Now, let's take this back here a little bit, back to the whole issue of you're not on the celiac diet yet. You're not on the gluten-free diet yet. So now you have bad communication habits, unhealthy, a lot of irritation, a lot of frustration. You got a lot of brain fog, a lot of hazy thinking, memory problems, whatever. You get on the gluten-free diet. Though now your brain fog is gone, though now your memory might improve, though a lot of things may happen, you still have the mirror neurons telling you how to do the communication. You have the mirror neurons telling you how, when somebody comes at you and they say, I don't know, how many of you are married? Okay, how many of you know someone who is married? Okay, for those that are single currently. Okay, have you ever noticed that it is that spouse that for some reason it seems like they have a short one-way ticket to your annoyance zone? Like somehow they know how to just speak in such a way to push your buttons. Maybe you have a coworker like that. They come in and they just can just say something, and you just are like, oh yeah, we're fighting now, okay? Even if what they said was totally innocent, that reaction is that habit formed by mirror neurons. You got it, okay? So, what I've tended to notice and have found out is that people treat the diet, which is important, absolutely necessary, but they don't work on strategies to retrain the mirror neurons. They don't work on strategies to rechange the behavior, to relearn how to talk to someone, to relearn how to build relationships, to relearn how to go shopping, how to do budgeting, and things along. We rely on old habits and the way we've always done it. And we rely on those mirror neurons, and that actually needs to, change. Okay, that part needs to be dealt with as well. So I would like to actually change this celiac anagram, okay, to look something kind of like this then. That all the first part, good stuff. Continual follow-up, I would just kind of want to just put that into that lifelong adherence category. Okay, that kind of belongs there. And I would like to change that last C, for the lack of any better term, because I like the C, to something like counseling or psychotherapy or something along those lines, to where you see someone to help you with the relationships of life, to help you with the continuation of talking with people, to dealing with the social aspects, to dealing with parenting issues. I don't know if you ever knew this or not, but some of the research that I have been able to accumulate shows that a lot of homes with celiac disease, once they get on the gluten-free diet, their children still tend to display very, very strong ADD, ADHD type symptoms. And they are not actually ADD, ADHD, even though they will get diagnosed it clearly. And some kids actually have that. But majority of the kids diagnosed with it, it really isn't ADD or ADHD. What it is something called anxiety-induced ADD or anxiety-induced ADHD. And that's because of the structure of the family, the dynamics of the family, the parenting style that was learned while not on the gluten-free diet, or they never relearned it, and they learned it from their parents who weren't on the gluten-free diet, and they got this habit of doing things in a semi-unstructured way or a certain type of structure that creates a very subtle tension. It's not unhealthy, it's not dangerous, it's just a very subtle tension that boosts a little bit of anxiety within the children. And that the children end up developing an ADD type symptom from that. So then, through different parenting techniques and relearning parenting structures, you can end up changing the family systems, changing the dynamic of the home, and finding out that the children can end up responding by having lowered anxiety, and therefore the ADD symptoms begins to go away. That's actually what happened with me. I personally was diagnosed with extremely high as you can get ADHD, but then later found out it was anxiety-induced. And once I dealt with the anxiety issue, my ADD and my attention focusing problems began to decrease. So it was something that I got to actually experience quite personally. And so what I would like to do is I'd like to kind of give you a real example. One of the things that my doctoral research is doing is to start a new workshop that's going to be beginning May 28th. And any of you guys are welcome to participate with this or not. What the workshop is, and I don't want this to be a big recruitment seminar type thing, I just want you to be informed of what this is this workshop is going to be where I'm taking my theories and putting it into practice. I just need human guinea pigs. If you're interested. There's a sign-up sheet in the back table. And it goes for 6 weeks, Wednesdays from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And each week we cover different diet issues, shopping techniques, we cover different recipes, we do a lot of that type of stuff, and covering issues on communication, psychotherapy type stuff, and taking care of parenting techniques and budgeting from a counseling point of view. This is what I had my bachelor's degree in psychology, my master's degree was in counseling, and my doctorate is a ministry-based family ministry counseling type emphasis to it based on an educational program. So it's called Doctor of Educational Ministry. Big fancy term. But anyway, so I'll be applying all of that with the diet techniques. And so if you want to participate with, you're welcome by all means to sign up for it. At the end of the 6 weeks, I'm going to give a drawing of all the people present, and one person will be able to get a free Kindle Fire, and everybody who participates get a copy of my book once it gets published as soon as my doctorate is done, which is the end of this year. And so you'll be getting a copy of the book. Here's just part of the example from that, because I don't want it to be a big recruitment thing. I just want to show you something you can take home and start practicing on right away. And that's dealing with what we all struggle with, conflict resolution. Okay, if you guys get in fights, is conflict big in your home? I mean, it's a good thing, by the way. The family that says they have no conflict is a family where half the people are not thinking. Okay, that's what it is. Every husband and wife are going to fight. Every parent with their kids are going to fight. Everybody with their sisters are going to fight, and with their kids are going to fight, and with their parents are going. With your boss and coworkers, there's going to be conflict. The issue is not removing the conflict. The issue is resolving it in a healthy fashion. And so what I tend to notice is that people tend to treat conflict, not that way, tend to treat conflict in a couple of different ways. And I want to adhere to kind of like a traffic light. That they tend to maybe treat it like a green light. Green light means I get to go. I get the right of way. Okay, I have my way, I know what I want, and I want to do it. And if you disagree with me, well, now we're in conflict, and my way's right. Okay, and then what they tend to happen is if the other person is also green lighting it, they're going to butt heads. And then they tend to have this nice little dynamic, nice and sarcastic, where they tend to shout louder than the other person. That's where the shouting matches begin to start. They'll talk louder because they think that if they talk louder, that means their voice is more important. What they have to say is not being heard, and let me talk. And the other person's feeling the same way, so they talk louder, and they talk louder, and then louder, and then you get this massive escalation of a shouting match. Okay, I can tell some of you have experienced that because you're not smiling right now. You're like, this is personal. I sat too close to the front. I can't leave. Okay, and so that's the green light approach. Some people will either resort to or will sometimes start at the red light approach. And at the red light approach is where they tend to stop the conversation dead in its tracks. Whether it's stonewalling, I'm not talking. Okay, this is where maybe like the guy comes home and he goes to his wife, but she's just sitting in the kitchen, not acknowledging his presence. He's like, hey, honey, how you doing? And she's just ignoring him, giving the full, oh, man, you guys have seen this too, full cold shoulder. And he's like, what's wrong? Well, if you don't know, I'm not telling you, and it's that complete shutdown. Or maybe it's a more of an aggressive approach rather than passive aggressive, to where when that fight happens, they're just going to storm off and leave and slam the door. Maybe they'll go out to the garage and start throwing things around, making it uncomfortable for everybody in the household. But they're going to do that red light approach, or just stopping it, and they're going to do some behavior someplace else. I'm going to go scream into a pillow. I'm going to go punch a tree. I'm going to go throw something. I'm going to slam a door. But it's that complete red light approach. And I would like to try to adhere to something called a yellow light approach. And you guys all know what yellow light means, right? No, it doesn't mean floor it. I know it's how you drive. That's not what it means. Yellow light, I can make it. I can make it. Yeah, that green light was pink when you went through it. No, it wasn't. Okay, but the yellow light approach, yellow is supposed to mean caution. It's supposed to mean caution. In other words, you're supposed to be able to know that it's time to slow down. It's time to start noticing what the other people are doing and what's going on to determine whether or not you can still continue, or if you need to alter a little bit your course of behavior. Whether you need to slow down, come to a stop, whether you need to turn, whether you have to wait for someone else to go, then you get to go, whatever the case may be. And so what this could end up looking like is what's known as, to help deal with this, is something known as the pause effect. Okay, where we can take the word pause and, like celiac, kind of anagram it a little bit. One of the ways that's nice about this is the word is what? Pause. Okay, and it helps the mirror neurons remember things sometimes for some people, that their mirror neurons are just wired in a way that they can see a word and know what the word means. I'm able to sit down with the word pause, and I can actually at any moment when someone comes to me for counseling, which I deal with quite often, and they say, we're having a fight, we're having this conflict, I can sit down without grabbing any books, without any computer, and I can go through this method to just get them started along the way until I can get them both into a session and hammer things out in a more detailed way. And so pause is just an easy way to remember how to do this. So the P stands for, okay, I know it's cheating, right? When a fight is beginning, most people know it's coming before it happens. The heart begins to increase, the heart rate begins to increase. The mind begins to race. Panic sometimes happens, beginning to sweat. Breathing becomes more shallow. You know when it's coming. You know when you're feeling angry. You can sense it. And to be able to take a moment and pause. Okay, and in that moment of pausing, trying to reflect what's going on. Asking yourself, why am I feeling angry? Why is it? Do I feel like that we're at conflict of goals here? Or do we have the same goal, but we're going at it from different directions? What exactly is this emotion that's going on? Why am I feeling upset? Am I assuming something about this person who claims to love me? Okay, a lot of times we tend to jump that they're out to hurt us, the people that we love. And really, they're not out to hurt us intentionally. Most spouses don't wake up going, how can I tick off my spouse? They don't usually start there, but we assume that. We act like that sometimes. So it's good to pause and remind ourselves, this person is not my enemy. This person is my partner. They're not a project, they're a partner. And we need to try and take that moment and pause. Like, for example, here's the example I like to use because it's simple. And I know life is not simple, but for purposes for today, this is simple. Let's say you got the husband, and he wants to eat pizza. Okay, what do you want for supper? It's kind of the discussion. He's like, I want to go to Vitale's. I got a good gluten-free crust. I want pizza. She, on the other hand, says, I was thinking more like P.F. Chang's. I want some good Chinese food. Now, the two are very dynamically different, right? So now comes the question, where are they going to eat? And there can be, for a moment, a potential for extreme conflict here. Well, I want pizza. Well, I want Chinese food. Well, Vitale sounds good. They might have something that meets your liking. Well, P.F. Change might have something to your liking. Well, you picked where we went last time. No, we didn't. I haven't picked in a long time. You picked last time because you picked it up to go and brought it home. Well, you didn't say what you wanted, and you see how that began to escalate. Suddenly you got scorekeeping going on. And it's good, it's a moment to say, pause. Why is it you're wanting pizza? Why could the other person possibly want Chinese? Why do you not want Chinese? Just kind of think that through. The next step of pause, the A, would be for affirming relationships. Okay, now this is going to be cheesy, corny as all get out, but I tell you right now it works, okay? This is where you make some way of affirming who the person is to you. When my wife and I, sometimes we'll have this issue of dinner, and I'll ask her, because I tend to do most of the cooking in our household, and I ask her, what would you like to eat? What can I make for you? And she'll say, one of the worst things I could ever hear, I don't care. Because I know that's not true. Because I know I could make something that she would not like. And so I'm like, well, sometimes I want to get almost confrontational. Well, that's not true. I could make hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, and you'll be mad. Well, yeah, because I don't like those. So you do care. Well, I care about that. And it can begin to escalate if we're not careful. Okay, but what I need to do is I need to affirm the relationship. When she says, I don't care, and I try to figure out, well, what if I made pork? Well, whatever you want. Well, that didn't float her boat. What if I made chicken? Would you like spaghetti? What would you like me to make a little, a taco? What? And she said, I really just, and then I want to affirm the relationship. Sounds something, I know, this is going to be corny, but it's awesome. It really is. Ready? I say something like this. Well, I just want you to know that it's not about what I'm eating, but who I'm eating with that matters. Now, the ladies are like, yeah. He's like, oh, give me a break. Like, really? That's like something out of a bad movie. Happily married. It works, okay? It really does work. Okay, just something to that effect. Well, we could do this, we could do that. Really, what it really boils down to is, as long as you're at the table, I'm happy. As long as and if you can say that, and if you can begin to speak that, your mirror neurons hear it and can begin changing the emotional pattern to where you might actually start believing what you just said. I know, you caught that. Where you can begin believing what you just said. And next thing you know, your anger begins to go down a little bit. It's not gone, but it's lowering. You can almost feel the tension begin to relieve just a little bit. Because now it's not a battle, because the focus is not the food. The focus is on eating with someone. Okay, so it affirms that relationship. At this point, you can then start asking questions. Why would you like this? Help each other understand interests. I didn't want Chinese because at work, the whole boss bought food for everybody, and it was Chinese, so I had Chinese for lunch. And if I have any more soy sauce, it's going to come up. And I just would like something else, it's anything else. And then she can be understanding, I see. And then she could tell, well, the kids were home early from school. We had a half day, and we had pizza for lunch. And so we really just don't want pizza again. If I have one more pepperoni, it's going to come up. Okay, and then now you can understand where each other's coming from. Okay, so just try to take a moment after the relationship is affirmed, understand interests. Understand where the other person is coming from. From that point, you can then search for creative solutions. Okay, now you can start searching for creative solutions. Well, what can we do? What if we went and got P.F. Chang's to go for you I went and got a little personal pan pizza for me, and then we went to a park and we had a picnic. She's like, ooh, okay, that sounds nice, you know, and now you can come up with creative solutions. Maybe something totally different. How about Mexican? You know, you come up with something totally different, but you come up with creative solutions. And after you come up with several creative solutions, if you got more than one, then you can evaluate it. Evaluate which option should we start doing, and let's pull the trigger and do something on this. Okay, so this is the pause effect for simple conflict resolution. This is a situation where two people are dealing with having a same goal, but are different ways of achieving that goal. It's that type of conflict. Now, there's other types of conflict that exist. This is where one person has wronged another, and that the conflict is not about having the same goal. The conflict is violation, offense, or betrayal. And now how do we deal with that? And that's another thing that will be covered on a different day. That would be a long discussion that wouldn't quite fit this format quite as well. But there's other types of conflicts that are out there. And so that's part of what I think needs to be worked on, is that we don't just do the diet and then stop. That we don't just do the ingredients and then stop and think that's it for the gluten-free world, that that's it for the gluten-free lifestyle. That we need to also deal with everything mentally. That we need to deal with behavior and our thought patterns, how we're thinking about things. That we can actually control this. I don't know if you ever realized you can control what's in your head. You can actually control your thinking. And so I'd like to do a little quick exercise to prove this to you. Does it sound all right? A little quick exercise. I just want to borrow somebody's Spartan bag. Who has a Spartan bag that I could borrow just for a minute for this great little exercise? Thank you. Let's have a little fun with this. Okay, I'll give it back. It feels like there's some good stuff in here. So, okay, here's what we're going to do. What color is this bag? I know there's other colors, but predominantly it's green. Okay, good. What color is the back of this piece of paper? Good. Okay, this color is, and this color is? Good. You guys are doing great. I've had conferences where it didn't go so well. Okay, but you're doing well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up one, and I want you to say what color it is. Okay? I know it sounds stupid, but I know you're not grade schoolers, but you can do this. You can do it. I know you can. You're doing great. You're 100%. Good job. You guys get an A. Now, here's what I want you to do. When I hold up the color, or the paper, I want you to say the other color. Okay? That's what I want you to do next, okay? So when I hold this up, I want you to say this color. When I hold this one, I want you to say this color, okay? You sound all right? Now it gets challenging. Okay. You guys are fun. Good job. See, now what you've been able to do, it's a real simple exercise. Thank you so much for that golden treasure chest that was. What you guys have been able to do effectively is control your thoughts to the point of actually being able to tell me something differently than you're seeing. Okay, and a lot of times we don't realize we can control this. We think that thoughts just happen and they spontaneously appear. And what happens is we get a lot of things, a lot of memories, a lot of ideas, stuff coming at us at 60 miles an hour. And it seems like that we're making decisions at a split second and that it just pops in and it's there and we don't know what to do with it. And a lot of those, you ever wonder why a thought would just pop in your head? You know, where did that come from? Okay. Mirror neurons, okay, and mirror neurons with other parts and other neurons of the brain might take something from a movie you saw, from something you saw at work or whatever, and will flash it just randomly, there it is. But now you have the ability to dwell on it, to change it, or to ignore it, and think something very different. Just like you did, your mirror neurons probably wanted to go white, but you're like, no, I'm saying green today. I'm saying green right now, okay? You're telling your mirror neurons, no, that's green. And your mirror neurons are laughing. That's green. You know, but you're saying green, okay? Because you're able to think differently than what your mirror neurons say. So we can retrain them. We can deal with them. It can happen. It is possible. And I tend to find that that's the missing ingredient. That's what's missing. And that we can have the hope for not only a healthier body, but healthier marriages, healthier workplaces, healthier relationships, healthier parenting, healthier budgeting. The whole 9 yards can indeed get healthier. It's going to be a lot of work. It really, really is.